Caloundra, on Queensland's Sunshine Coast, is a popular holiday destination. Its natural beauty, surf beaches and laid-back family-friendly atmosphere attracts visitors from around Australia and overseas. However, there is more to this seaside community than sun, surf and sand. For almost a century, Caloundra locals and holidaymakers have come together away from the beach to experience another form of entertainment, the magic of the movies. This is the story of Caloundra's picture theatres, the Amuse You, the Strand, the Lock and the Caloundra Drive-In, and their contribution to the social fabric of the Caloundra community. Caloundra's first permanent picture theatre, the Amuse You, was built on the corner of Bullcock Street and Knox Avenue in 1935. Following extensive renovations to the theatre from 1947 to 1949, the Amuse You was renamed The Strand. The cinema played an important social role in the Caloundra community and continues to be a popular choice for a night out with family and friends.
Cinema was more of a part of the social experience, going back to pre-video days.
More than 70 million people in the United States go to the movies each week to get away from their cares and to find entertainment, romance and thrills on the magic screen.
There were dances and all sorts of things that were put on in town for entertainment. Down on the beach, various stages were set up, but it was still the theatre that people came out to.
Places like the Strand were the only place that you could go and see Star Wars, Cleopatra, 2001: A Space Odyssey, that were, at the time, events. Going to the movies was a big deal.
The people used to go out to dinner and then come to the movies afterwards and dress up really well.
You'd have nice pants, shirts, and well dressed with your hair combed.
We used to reserve the seats.
There were people who had a regular seat. That's my seat, you know, you don't give that away.
That was all that you could do in Caloundra, just go to the movies.
Throughout the 1940s, 50s and 60s, screenings at the Strand started between 7 and 7:30 and finished usually around 11 p.m. The theatre's nightly program provided audiences with a night of entertainment.
The Queen was projected, a short clip of the Queen at the beginning. Everyone would stand and the Queen would be projected. Then there'd be a cartoon. Matinees, there'd be a serial like Superman or Sydney Sound News ran newsreels. And then a shorts, sometimes a travel log, and there were always two main features.
The titles of a motion picture provide a few moments during which the audience can withdraw from the real world before the picture itself starts.
Once you're in the movies, you're caught up in a collective emotion so that everyone laughs together, everyone cries together, everyone gasps, you know, at the same point. There is very much a feeling that when you're watching that film with an audience, that your emotional response is greater than if you're watching the film in isolation.
Special screenings were also held at the Strand as fundraising events for numerous organisations in the Caloundra community.
A Rotary Club or APAX Club would hire the cinema to do an opening of a film.
Dad was a life member of the Met Caloundra Club. We'd get the lifesavers to do a little bit of ushering.
My husband was head of Caloundra JCs. One of our fundraisers was to have a movie night at the Strand, and we chose Barbarella. It was a fairly good draw card, and we raised a reasonably good amount of money.
We organised a screening for the local convent up here for Sister Act. My husband invited the nuns to a couple of the nuns movies, plus Pretty Woman, which I nearly died.
Fair dinkum, it was absolutely chock-a-block, and the nuns were kicking themselves, laughing, around. It was great to see them all there, All the proceeds went to the convent.
The busiest times at the cinema are the holidays, as the tourists who crowd the beaches during the day look for nighttime entertainment.
But the town would more than double in size with the holiday makers.
Particularly from Boxing Day, the businesses just go through the roof then until about the end of January.
Always holiday time, leading into the school holiday break.
We'd pray for the sunshine to come, stay out, and then when they got here, prayed for the rain so they'd come to the cinema.
My sister and I were Brisbane girls, and our grandmother lived up here at Caloundra, just up the road from the cinema. So it was a really big event. There was no other choice. I mean, this was the only place that teenagers could go.
It wouldn't be unlikely a queue out the door and part the way down the street. Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, the main holiday times, they were all full houses.
One Christmas time, we had 1,100 seated in here. The amount of seats didn't cater for the number of people that were there. We set all these chairs up in the foyer area, and a little bit down the passageways, we used to pull out posters, and they would sit on the floor and watch the movies.
The theatre was the place to go.
The popularity of the Strand led to the Bennetts' decision to build a second theatre, The Lock, at Moffat Beach. The Lock was constructed at a site on Roderick Street and officially opened on the 20th of December 1956.
If we're talking about the 50s and the 60s, that whole flat area at Moffat Beach was all camping area. So all the campers would go to the movies at night.
I only ended up at the Lock a couple of times, but both times I went, they were playing international films. And I had no idea that anywhere showed films that were in different languages and you had to read subtitles.
It was built as a theatre, but it had a stage. The Strand didn't have a stage. It had a stage, it had a candy bar. It was designed as a multi-purpose hall, but it was a theatre, and the theatre took first choice.
The school used the Lock as a hall. So yeah, I think the building itself became a community meeting place.
I think it was somewhat of an unfortunate move, building a theatre at a time when TV was coming.
Television is widespread in all the capital cities and extending into the bigger country areas too.
We stopped screening at the Lock because it was damaged due to a rock and roll concert that went on there one night. But when we got over there, the projection room had been vandalized and the projectors were damaged, and that was the end of that one.
In the late 1960s, the Bennetts decided to put the Strand and the Lock theatres on the market. After 30 years in the cinema business, they eventually sold the theatres to John and Roma Butler in 1968.
The 70s rolls in and you get the summer blockbuster. Star Wars, Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
One memorable moment was actually Jaws, when that came out.
Oh, Jaws, yes.
A different kind of spectacle, but again, a roller coaster ride where your attention is completely transfixed on the spectacle.
The number of times I walked out the projection room just when I knew when all that old Jaws was going to come up out of the, just to go out and hear the audience, and it was amazing.
Sometimes they'd put on all-night movies.
Dracula, Frankenstein, all those sorts of things. It was anything that we could come up with like that.
It didn't really matter what was playing. The main thing was just like getting together and hanging out as a group.
On occasion, surf films were screened at the cinema to cater for the local surfing community.
An independent fellow came along and he would hire the cinema and he'd put on these 16mm surf films. And they were hugely successful.
There's probably 2 or 3 that we went and saw. Morning off the Earth was definitely one of them.
We were all surfers. We were at the beach the whole day and the cinemas at night. So that was really playing to our interests very much.
The screening of surf movies at the cinema continues today, and Caloundra now hosts the Sunshine Coast Surf Film Festival. The 1970s also marked the arrival of another movie theatre in Caloundra, the Drive-In.
We certainly believe in outdoor living, even when we go to the pictures.
I remember when the drive-in came, we thought we were just really, civilised, having a drive-in.
Located on Caloundra Road and officially opened on the 8th of December 1971, the Caloundra Drive-In Theatre provided cinema goers with another option for nighttime entertainment and offered a different kind of movie experience.
Drive-ins came to the fore around about the mid-50s, along with the baby boomer kids starting to come of age and getting their own cars, or the family in the car going to the movies as part of the family bonding experience.
What we offered to the people, our patrons, was a family atmosphere.
Our neighbours often take us to the drive-in theatre in their car. When we get our own car, the whole family will be able to go to the pictures together, with baby asleep on the back seat.
Drive-ins at first were a family arena, and then as the 60s mutated into the 70s, it became more of a teen and young adult thing.
Well, when you first get your licence, it's a bit of a novelty to just hop in your car and go to the drive-in with some mates or your girlfriend.
They'd reverse their utilities and their station wagons up. They wouldn't face the screen, they'd face away from it. They'd sit on the tailgate and they'd have their esky of soft drink and whatever they like to bring to the drive-in theatre.
Yeah, we did a couple of naughty things too, like we didn't want to all pay, so we'd have one in the boot and one under a blanket in the well between the front and back seats and stuff like that.
It was an opportunity for people to get together and enjoy each other's company.
The 1980s were a time of change at the Strand Theatre.
The cinemas went from being these buildings that you could just open the shutters up at night. Now the people wanted good seating and, air conditioning.
In February 1980, the original Strand Theatre was demolished and a new multi-level shopping complex was constructed on the site. The new Strand Theatre was located on the top level of the building. The Strand complex opened for business in October 1980.
The Strand was the hangout joint. That's where we used to go as kids. School holidays would come around and there's about 3 things that you'd do in Caloundra in the 80s. One was you'd go to the beach. The other one was you'd go to Rollerdrome, and then it'd be like, oh, let's go to the movies.
In the 1980s, more and more blockbusters found their way onto the screen and were enjoyed by audiences at the Strand.
E.T., Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, and also Terminator.
I think the first time I ever went to the Strand was 1986, and I saw Aliens on the big screen.
Like we did Crocodile Dundee, that first Crocodile Dundee that ran over 2 years at the Picture Theatre. Ran at 4:30 in the afternoon every day.
The new Strand shopping complex continued the old theatre's tradition of providing a connecting point for the people within the Caloundra community.
Have you seen the car in Ghostbusters at all? Well, they send that car down Balcock Street in Caloundra. And of course, everybody is here to see the Ghostbusters car. You shut the city of Caloundra down.
The new building's arcade design, complete with courtyard, restaurants and specialty shops, allowed it to be used for a variety of events and encouraged cinema patrons to shop and have a meal before or after the movies.
And when we went to the new cinema, and there was a restaurant next door, they had a dinner and movie deal that they came up with.
Frequently you used to go to Polaris Jack and then to the movies.
I remember New Year's Eve, it became a bit of a gathering point for people in Caloundra. Just used to hang around outside the Strand, and then guys would come down from the post office with their hotted up cars, and just do burnouts in front of the Strand.
In 1989, after 20 years of owning and operating the cinema, John and Roma Butler sold the Strand Theatre to Doug and Robin Nolan.
We used to come up here every 12 months for our holidays, and Jackie Butler never charged me to see the movie sort of thing, and he said to me this particular year we went up, he said, if you come back next year, mate, you might have to pay. And I said, well, why is that? He said, I'm selling out. I said, you're kidding me. He said, no, I'm selling out, you know.
We came up, we went to the movies. My husband knew Jack Butler. And when we got home, he said, I believe the Strand is up for sale. And that was my first inclination.
I went home and had a talk with Robin, my wife, and we ventured into the cinema.
I was a bit reluctant at first, but then I got to love it. It just brought so many good memories and friendships by being at the cinema.
We held our own. We did pretty good, you know.
By the early 1990s, the multiplex cinema model was gaining momentum. The multi-screen design allowed multiplex cinemas to screen a variety of movies simultaneously and provided cinema audiences with a greater choice. This cultural change put pressure on single-screen cinemas like the Strand.
Initially, Maroochydore, my main opposition, only had one screen, the same as me. But then they went into a complex and that made it very, very difficult.
In 1995, Doug and Robin decided not to renew their lease on the Strand Theatre. They were the last to operate the theatre as a single screen.
The multi-screen idea was just starting to be realised by everybody, that one or two screens was not enough, you needed more and more. So when we came here, so that was always the intention, for it to be as many screens as possible.
Multiplexes rule because most audiences want the Marvel films, the superhero films, the franchises. Those are the expectations of the majority of audiences. If you haven't seen the film on the big screen, there's something lesser about the experience of watching it on a television or in a home theatre, or especially on a mobile phone or a tablet.
You sit in front of the television and you sit down and you're relaxed and whatnot, but it's not the same. You've got to get out and mingle with people and, you know, and as I say, see new faces, new places.
Once the lights go down, it's not the sound and it's not the comfort of the seat, and it's none of those things. It's humans then being able to immerse themselves in the story that's being told in front of them and enjoying it with other human beings. And I think that's why it's still relevant today.
Now promoted as Big Screen Cinemas Caloundra, the Strand continues to play an important social role in the Caloundra community. Caloundra is now home to the Caloundra Film Festival and the Sunshine Coast Surf Film Festival, which enable audiences to experience a wide variety of films from Australia and around the world, and contribute to the screen culture of the Sunshine Coast region. The popularity of these festivals and other screenings are testimony to Caloundra's continued love affair with cinema and form part of the seaside town's 83-year-old tradition of going to the movies.
I think the magic that you experience watching a film on the big screen for the first time never really goes away.
Movies are a time of excitement and entertainment and fun.
Yeah, no, it's good days, great days.
It was his life. He really enjoyed it, and I did too.
It was a great job, it really is.
And I enjoyed every moment that I spent at the theatre.
I was just an usherette and used to help in the candy bar, mainly.
Oh,
yes.
and you were the one that checked the cinema, and if anybody played up, you saw to that.
was hanky-panky going on in the seats. And of course we had deck chair type seats, which was very convenient to cuddle up in.
I took one of my first girlfriends to the Strand Cinema. Oh, look, I probably score myself a 0 out of 10 for how that actually went.
But I was married when I went to the drive-in. The ones who weren't married, they'd just go for what they called a pash. At the time it was called a pash.
We'd all meet at the movies and then we'd go walking around the beaches.
You'd say to your mum and dad that you were going to the movies and you were seeing a double feature, and you'd actually be going down the beach for a party. So the Strand was a bit of an alibi for the kids, teenage kids at Caloundra, definitely, mate.
If you'd run a movie at 9 o'clock at night, you were lucky to get, 5 people to it sort of thing. And this particular movie we ran, and there was one person, and we were all tired and wanting the bloke to go home sort of thing and whatnot, And anyway, we got to the end of the movie and turned the lights on and he'd gone. I don't know how long we were operating with the movie. He'd walked out, so we could have all got home a couple of hours earlier, probably.
I've been to many places. I've been very fortunate to be to many places in the world, and this rates #1 by a country mile. We have 5 of the greatest beach locations within 5 minutes of the main street, depending on the weather conditions, whether you're a surfer or a windsurfer, or you just want a safe little beach for your kids to go and have a paddle in. This is just heaven on a stick.